Welcome to Brohelio, a space where we explore and discuss complex and often difficult topics. Before we begin, we want to acknowledge that today's discussion may cover traumatic events and include language and topics that could be triggering for some. Please be advised that we are not healthcare professionals, psychologists, or legal advisors. The content shared in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered as professional advice. If you find yourself feeling overwhelmed or in need of support, we strongly encourage you to seek help from a qualified professional. In case of an emergency, please do not hesitate to contact emergency services immediately. Our goal is to foster understanding and awareness while respecting the sensitivity of the subjects discussed. Listener discretion is advised. Thank you for joining us, and let's approach today's topic with empathy and openness.
It's official. We're here.
Yeah, let's see if anybody joins up and says anything to us.
We didn't communicate that we were going to do it. So.
No, we didn't, so I don't expect anybody to drop by, but who knows? You never know.
Never know.
Anyways, but I'm proud of us because this is 3 weeks in a row now that we've done this.
It's true. We're doing great.
So that's actually, I think, in my eyes, that's great. Yeah. That we've found a time that works.
Agreed.
And that we can continuously, maybe put things on a regular schedule, which is nice.
I think the setup this time was way easier.
Mm-hmm.
I think having the camera set up, ready to go, is key.
But yeah, all we had to do was move the chairs.
Yeah, I can figure that out.
Make our own studio one day. Anyways, so what do you want to dive into first? The weaknesses or areas of interest that help us cope?
Let's start with weakness.
Okay.
Let's break ourselves down before we build ourselves up.
Back up.
Let's Disney this bitch.
Anyways.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Alright, well, there's physical weaknesses, mental weaknesses.
Yeah.
Emotional weaknesses. There's a broad category.
There is. How would we constrain that? Let's say weaknesses that hold you back.
Okay. Self-limiting, thoughts that, maybe beliefs that aren't really weaknesses, but it's in your head.
Yeah.
That keeps you.
So there's definitely two types there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an interesting question. There's the physical weakness, and I think weakness can manifest in multiple ways.
Mm-hmm.
Disease can force weakness, or weakness can be a product of existence. If you don't work out over time to a certain degree,
mm-hmm.
naturally dystrophy and weakness sets in.
Atrophy?
Atrophy. Yeah, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Weakness sets in. So.
Okay, well.
Let's focus on weaknesses that are preventable, and then what you can do to cope with weaknesses which are not preventable. So those are key differences.
Yeah, I mean, the health issues I have, I don't know if I would classify that as a weakness necessarily, but it is something that I have to deal with, and I can't just say doesn't exist.
I wouldn't say it's not like your weakness, and it's not degrading you or your function.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how I would quantify that for your body, as far as.
Mm-hmm. I guess you could. I don't know if I would think of it as a weakness, but it would definitely be something that's limiting. Yes. Because, it limits what I can eat, limits I can't do, super strenuous exercise. I can still do, moderate and normal exercise, but it's just, no CrossFit. Not that I was going to do that anyways, but, no, really, running hardcore or lifting, gazillion pounds of weight. Yeah. So those are
Is there like a threshold for heartbeat which you can't exceed?
no,
Or
not any more than the average person, but it's more. I think it has to do with gastrointestinal problems I have.
yeah,
Because it makes it like I don't know. It's like the acid reflux. It makes it hard to like take in deep breaths if you're
yeah.
going full force. So it's not so much cardiovascular issue. I think it's more of a gastrointestinal issue for me. But
Sometimes if I eat right before I go running, I want to throw up.
well, yeah, that's why you don't go swimming 20 minutes. For
Yeah.
what is it, 20 or 40 minutes?
20 or 40. That's somewhat of
After
a.
you eat.
I think.
Hey, did somebody message
like
us a heart? Or was that
why
always
feel? No, I think that's something else.
okay.
Yeah, I think that's something else.
Oh, okay.
We can react to stuff.
Cool.
Squirrel.
Anyways, yeah.
Well, let's see. Weakness.
Anyways, I would maybe more think about like
What do you want to talk about?
I don't know, weakness maybe be like
How could you be more strong?
stronger, like mentally or physically stronger. I could exercise more. Definitely. I mean, obviously.
Exercise.
Hey, I gotta run with those kids. I gotta exercise.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I could exercise more and watch what I eat. That's definitely, I would probably classify that as a weakness. That I don't follow a good diet, and it's probably probably like eating your feelings type of situation.
Yeah.
That I'm not dealing with. God only knows what I have to eat, deal with.
Yeah.
And therefore I'm eating tons of junk, which is, not great, but better than other ways I could be destroying myself.
It's true. It's true.
I mean, that's the only way I'm not on drugs, so, I don't have.
You're not on illegal drugs.
Okay, fine, I'm on tons of drugs.
You're on tons of drugs.
Nothing mind altering.
And no
psychoactive. Sertraline. Okay, fine. That's mine, But yes, I'm not on any illegal drugs, and I don't drink alcohol just because I think it's a bad idea for me in general.
It's poison, absolutely.
I just with my family history, I'm like, I don't know if moderation would be on my side if I went into that. So
I know that it is not on my side. And I struggle. I think alcohol is a weakness for me because whenever I start, I like to keep drinking. And then I get drunk, and then there is regret the next day. Being a hungover parent is difficult. Not only do I not like being hungover,
no, who does?
Or I don't like knowing that I haven't been in control. It's another thing. But most importantly these days, I hate parenting in a compromised state.
Oh yeah, because you're like that much more like tense about like if you're gonna mess up or
you're
gonna miss something.
And then it's just like you don't want to have an excruciating headache when you need to be running after a kid. And then it's tough, because they're like screaming at you and they're beating you up, and it's like you need to be your best version of yourself around them because sometimes they can be nasty and you don't want to like
snap
at them or something like that.
Yeah, that's the alcohol is one. It's not a weakness for me just because I just don't indulge in it at all. Because I'm just, I don't know if it's something I could, like my dad, he has like a beer a day and that's it. And I consider that to be like.
Some people can just keep it at that. And they don't go into the excess.
But yeah, based on family history, I don't think it would be on my side to do that. Let's see, what other weaknesses can we?
I know that physically my upper back is comparatively weak. against my pecs, and now I hunch over because of it. It has something to do with the mind-boggling amount of push-ups I've done in my life versus the amount of back exercises. That's part of it. My posture's bad, but I'm just like overtuned this way, so that's like an imbalance for me, which sometimes presents as weakness because I've had back pain before, which is kind of a form of weakness or a form of imbalance. And so that's something that I try to stay on top of, and it's something that I'm trying to work on this year, is my posture, and then just balancing my body some. The other weakness.
Yeah, I don't know if we need to like reframe the way we're thinking about this because it doesn't seem to be as rich a vein of
I don't think we're leading to any positive ways to view these things from. But it's okay to have weaknesses, and it's okay to.
Well, I mean, it's okay. It's okay to understand that you have weaknesses and not to judge yourself too harshly because everybody has things that they're not as good as they wish they were, or they hope to be one day.
For sure, accepting the weak version, the version of who you are today is key. It's okay to want to change for sure and make small steps to get yourself there, if you want, or just accept it and move on. I think that at some point there are definitely certain things that you simply have to accept.
True.
But
I
would also challenge people to not accept the things that they can change.
Was a serenity prayer? God grant me the wisdom to change the things I can, accept the things I can't, and know the difference between the two. It's something along those lines. Because I remember that's something like tied into the Flash's motto. Like Spider-Man is great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
And Flash is like, know what you can and can't do, and be okay. Because I love that aspect of the character because he is so powerful. He can do backwards in time, forwards in time, cross dimensions, do all this kind of stuff. But there is things even beyond his control.
Yeah.
And you just can take accept that for somebody who is so powerful. It's probably got to be a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
So, weaknesses.
So let's move away from, or let's segue.
Sure.
And sometimes weaknesses can get us down. And we have to figure out a way to pick ourselves back up or to just generally keep going. Something that I find helpful is areas of interest.
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of things that
or things that we like to
hold on to in times that are bad. That just give you a reason to keep going through those really dark times.
Yeah,
it can be shows, it can be art, they can be sports. Friends. It can be all kinds of things. And I think one of my main things of how I cope is my ability to imagine worlds and stories and just take things to absurd conclusions. That's why I like
you revel in the absurdity.
It's the greatest. I mean, so much of life is absurd already.
True.
You just gotta look at it sometimes and why are you so serious?
Yeah.
Everything else is nuts. Why don't you just join the party? And so I kind of and especially in terms of humor, I don't like putting people down. So, very mean,
me neither.
Spirited jokes are just, I can laugh at them, but they're generally not the jokes I crack.
Yeah.
So
it's one of the things that steers me away from hip hop. Is that it's so crass and it's so degrading to a certain degree versus I like people who can rhyme and talk really fast to a beat. Like, that's some of the things I like about hip hop, the way that gets stitched together. But there's so much of that just like sort of grating and mean, and like I got the biggest trucks, yo. I got guns.
The
where my hoes at?
The petty things they sing about in different music. Yeah. Everybody's diss tracks. I'm like, who cares? Who do you hate?
Yeah, it's not.
I mean, you can you can make a good song, like tearing into somebody or something, but at the same time, you're like,
no. Why break somebody down? We should be lifting people up. Make good songs about other things.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a bunch of artists who do some crazy things, but yeah, I generally don't like being mean.
No. Good. I'm glad you don't. And so I wouldn't hang out with you if you did.
No, and even at just to crack a joke or something, you can laugh at it, but I think I don't think it says you're a bad person for cracking like very over the line jokes or something if they're creative enough and you can walk that line. But the problem is if you don't walk that line, you're gonna fall into a pit hard, and you just have to understand that, like, of course I was gonna fuck up. I said this. It's completely wrong, and you just gotta own up to it. And it's also not how my mind works.
Yeah,
just dunking on people.
So you're a fan of the absurd in comedies. It's like there's a certain amount of absurdness that you find comedic.
Yeah,
it lightens the mood because it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, I love that because it just.
I think that's kind of why I like Rick and Morty.
Absurd. That's exactly why. Well, okay, that's not why everybody loves it. There's a contingent of the fan base that love it for entirely terrible reasons. But yeah, it's definitely absurd to the max, and that's what's so great about it.
Yeah.
And a lot of humor, but it's also very dark and very mean at the same time.
There are elements of that.
Oh, there's a ton of, like, just outright...
Why are they so mean to Jerry?
Damn near evil shit that everybody does to each other.
Yeah.
Like, nobody... You can't root for anybody.
Yeah. Let's see, but areas of interest help you through those dark times. And...
Well, usually I like the absurdist humor because it takes the seriousness out of a situation. If you can laugh at something, then it's really like 1/10 as scary as it was before.
Yeah.
Even if it's something.
Oh, that's a good point. Just being a little bit better, I think, is key.
Mm-hmm.
Like.
Yeah, and that's a lot of the reason that I joke as much as I do is just because there's so much serious going on that you just gotta inject a little absurdity in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where I get my stuff. My coping from is these worlds I build in my head, or these ideas for stories that I have. And I don't know about you, but it seems like you like to almost feng shui your house every week or so. At least that seems to be some kind of thing for you and helping you focus your energies.
It does. I think I like to make scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And then, do something and then move on. One of the reasons why I've been rearranging my downstairs so much is because I don't have that ideal setup in my mind yet. So I'm continuing to explore variations.
Okay.
And through this process, I get to see what it looks like to work in different areas, what it's like to lounge in different areas. I primarily bought this house to have an office. I don't have an office. So I'm trying to figure out.
All you gotta do is
throw up a curtain.
Throw up a curtain right here and make it like a castle. So just like that, and you have like little windows, you know, Nerf battles with Link and stuff. Be great. But yeah, you could totally.
But I'm 100% do. It's like a coping mechanism. It's like if I have a big change coming up, like I'm gonna rearrange my stuff and see if I can reframe my life through this new perspective. I've been like this for a long time. I was rearranging in high school. I think I was rearranging in middle school. It's something I like to do.
Yeah. I came up with another story that I'm thinking about just because my brain just constantly doesn't shut up. And this one is about somebody who lives in like a fifth dimension, like in a multiverse, and he has kind of hive mind.
Whoa.
So he exists in all universes, ever-growing amount of universes, and he gains all the knowledge and skills and everything across all lives, across every instance of himself.
Sure.
Because I was wondering, like, you know, we live in 3 dimensions and we experience life in 4 dimensions, time, you know.
Yeah.
So would there be a kind of life form that could exist in, like, a multiple universe type thing, and how would that work? And my theory is it would be some kind of, like, hive mind kind of thing where you're one person, but you're one person across an ever expanding possibility of reality.
Yeah.
And, you know,
that would be interesting. What sort of scenarios would your hive mind character get into?
Well, it would also another one of those things is because he's so different from everybody else. Like, he makes decisions that, as somebody from, like, what does life mean to somebody who's, you know, when they die, they're not dead. So, you know, even though this death of this life, they still go on in another timeline. So, like, they could kill somebody somewhere and they just don't get it. Maybe they don't get it. That ends that person. They're gone. Because they are they're 3-dimensional. They exist in that universe, in that instance, and that's them gone.
Yeah.
Whereas you, in your existence, you exist across all this space, and so if one instance flickers out, does it really matter in your, like...
Oh, if you're somehow, for the hive mind person that can somehow experience all timelines?
Yeah, like...
Well, so that's more of like a feature...
Well, that's how I kind of...
system. But what dramas? How would the readers interact with that type of a character? Well, the reason why I ask this is because it's very hard to, in a meaningful way, create dramas with god characters.
Well, he's not a god character. He's still limited in various other ways. Like, he's still, like, got a human lifespan.
Yeah.
So he does have a
human lifespan.
There is a finiteness to him because he has a beginning and he has an end. So he can't branch off into infinity because there is a beginning and the end. So he's not a god. Like,
but if he's experiencing himself on an uncountable number of universes, and the information that he would inherit surely would be godlike.
I mean, not necessarily, because it's still...
Just because he can't bend space-time doesn't mean that he's not like...
No, I mean, it gives him an extra a set of abilities, but at the same time, it doesn't make him, like, instant, like, that much... He still has the intelligence...
Yeah.
Or the reasoning ability of the average person. So it's just... the one thing he has is he can take innumerable... things and condense it together and, have more experience. Basically, it just amounts to more experience.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they can do some, kind of like superpowered things,
if I may,
but they are not a godlike character.
You've been developing this new story, and we don't have to get into the specifics of your story for the areas of interest to keep the podcast going. I think that's very healthy, and it's great to think of those things and to get truly theoretical, to kind of tease that out. Great way to cope, actively involving your imagination and kind of cultivating an idea.
Yeah, and I have I have that multiple. It's mainly sci-fi ideas pushing the bounds of what's possible, and how you'd be different if pushed to some kind of extreme.
Yeah.
Like if you lived for billions of universes through countless eons, and how like life would be.
This idea circles back to your other guy.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's different because he cannot die, and he's more almost godlike than this character. This character,
but I mean, it's still a different type of infinity. You can.
Well, this one, that one's more like trying to grasp at infinity. This is trying to grasp at, like, if you could live in like fifth dimensionally, like how would a life form live? How would something exist to be a fifth dimensional being? The ones that's like across multiverses.
So I mean, you would experience life on that plane. So like time, the linear scale of time, I think would be trumped in a way to a certain degree by that fifth dimension, and there would, I think, be an information exchange on the fifth dimension, which could somehow trickle out into the other dimensions.
I was just thinking of it in terms of the multiverse, and if that were the next, like, another spatial dimension, how that would work.
I don't even know. No, I don't know if information could go back the other way, as far as with the existing quantum theorem that we have, as far as...
Oh, I don't know in terms... like, I'm not going heavily into the physics of it. I'm just thinking, like, just taking, like, a...
Sure. Hold on, we gotta reel ourselves in.
Yeah, anyway, so yeah, that's what I like to take. I take stories that are, like, absurd, or the one where I want to destroy all desert planets in the universe. Absurd. Because I'm just tired of movies with desert planets.
It's a great absurd plot,
and it's obviously
perfect super villain plot material.
And it's making fun of me mostly because it irritates me to a degree that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And I've had it.
You recognize how irrationally angry you become over
multiple people are like, "Why do you have a problem with this?" I'm like, because the universe is vast and we're on desert planets. Time.
Yeah.
So yeah, but anyways, you like so I like the world building and stories and like taking things, like different little things, and changing them and seeing how your experience would be different. Like, how would you experience relating to other people if you existed like that? Could you understand people who only have that one instance versus you having this kind of hive existence? And would your morality be different because you could cause accidents or kill anybody, and to you that might just be more life you live, instead of like some kind of more morality, and then you're landing, maybe you come to a realization that you are ending something.
Yeah. I like this idea because it presents a lot of interesting questions.
That's why I love science fiction. It's mostly about the questions and not so much about the answers half the time. It's just like, what if? I think if you ask that question in life and you constantly ask it, you're probably heading in the right direction. Whereas if you just say, this is how it is, and then just like try to cram your world into it, you're just like, you're not gonna have a good time. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyways, that's one of the things I like to do. I mean, we both like to game, so that's another thing that's probably gotten us through.
Yeah.
Although
being able to connect with others and share experiences, and also experience some joy along the way. That's what I like about gaming. Certainly, there are healthier activities, like we could be going for walks and things like that. But
when you've got friends and they live 30 minutes away, and it's a weeknight, and you have kids, and you've got work, meeting a friend up to, go for a walk or a run or play a basketball game is just not really feasible. No. And you can do that stuff on the weekend when you got a little bit more time, but you know, you're just usually too tired.
Yeah, for me, so gaming. I do get into reading every now and then. I'll like change into reading mode and I'll crush a whole bunch of books.
Yeah, I seem to do it the same way. I'll get into something and I'll read like 15 books in like 2 or 3 months, and then I won't read for like
2 years or a year. Yeah, I'm the same way.
The last jag I went on was the Dresden Files.
Dresden Files. Yep.
I read like 15 or 16 of those books in like 2 months.
Yeah, I'm the same.
My friend has gotten me. He's trying to get me into this new series that I've kind of been putting off. Book of the New Sun, I think it's called. Or it's like a series, like 4 books, and the series is called like the Book of the New Sun. So
that sounds fun.
Yeah, I'm.
Is it sci-fi or is it fantasy?
I think it's fantasy.
Yeah.
It might be a little sci-fi fantasy, like Doctor Who, Star Wars style.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, those things.
So I think everyone needs kind of a spectrum of interests, so they can find things that can get them outside, and they can find things that can keep them, kind of busy at night. Especially for people who don't manage their quiet mind very. I don't want to say well, but for people who never really get quiet,
people can't quiet their mind like me.
Then you need stuff to do. I like to do nothing sometimes.
I mean, usually that nothing is usually like me popping on Parks and Rec in the background, and I'm just like,
no, that's not nothing.
Usually it's just listening to it until I kind of just like zone out, because I'm only really kind of paying attention because I don't need to, because I've seen the show 4 times.
Yeah. That's not what I'm talking about. I mean, like laying on the ground in darkness and trying to zero my mind from all thought. And letting the stimuli touch. And so, like, stimuli may happen, but I'm not attaching to it. I'm letting it go. And then with my breath exercise, I can literally fade away. And there's nothing there. It's just blackness. Or sometimes it's pure light.
Yeah.
And so I love that. I love to be able to get to the point to where I'm no longer letting the layers of existence insert themselves on me and have running dialogue. And
I usually get swept up in the things I'm thinking about, where I kind of get that zen from being somewhere else.
Yeah.
In my own mind.
The flow state is what I call it, the sense of zen. So, like, people describe it differently. I like the flow state to where you are the operation happening, kind of operator exists, and it's like you're kind of fade away.
Yeah, I'm more like fade into a story. I guess that's how I usually think of it, because nothing for me is so hard to achieve. Actually creating a scenario that is wholly invented in my mind to get me away from where I'm at is easier. So these stories where I think of these grand things, they can calm me down, because, it's more fantastical. I always loved stories. I think more so than a lot of people I know. It's more my thing. It's like people who play fantasy sports and stuff, and they're really into sports. Like, it does not track for me. I get it that people can love it that much, but it doesn't. I can't. It doesn't resonate. It just doesn't do anything for me. And it took me a long time to realize that people don't relate to stories, I think, in some of the same ways that I do.
Or maybe you're just not thinking about the fantasy sports from the angle that they're thinking about it. There's certainly no plot behind being in a fantasy football league.
Well, no, it's the certain things people get into that, I mean, for whatever reason, it just really resonates or, hits an interest with them.
Yeah.
And, it's another thing that's hard to conceptualize is you kind of extrapolate the way you view existence to everybody else, that to try and get some kind of common ground, to think how people operate, and to expect to figure out what you're going to expect from other people. You kind of take your experience and project it on the others, which is, all you have is your experience. Now you can use methods to make your experience more rational and give your framework a better footing in reality. But it's saying you can only relate through your experience.
The human brain, or consciousness, I think, is a very predictive model. So it's like you take information and then you're making predictions based on that.
But again, it's also something like some things that people viscerally experience differently. Or, Balrog doesn't have an imagination. Like, to me, that just floors
No, he has
mind.
an imagination. I talked to him extensively about this. It's just that he doesn't visualize.
Okay, so he doesn't have a visual imagination, but it's the way he describes it to me is it's more like he can put things together from like a diagram in his brain, but he can't actually like imagine anything new. He can't take bits and parts of stuff together to make
no, I think he could. He would just not be able to visually describe it outside of making the thing.
I'm not even sure the way he's talked about it. He says is I can I can make a wheel. I know the instructions and I know how to do that, but just imagining.
I think it boils down to encoding and then recalling that in that program.
But the point is, he experiences
different,
pretty fundamental part of of existence really differently from how I do.
Yeah.
At least as much as I can ascertain from that, and other people do the same thing,
Everyone's different.
I'm not saying nobody can appreciate stories like I do. It's not what I mean.
Yeah.
It just means that stories and worlds mean more to me for whatever reason. Just like sports mean more to some people, or music means more to certain people. For many, for whatever many different reasons. And it's kind of hard because you don't understand that, maybe people don't experience stories or music or, sports in quite the same way you do.
Yeah.
And
I expect that we all differ in how we relate to each one of these things.
Mm-hmm.
I like specific sports for certain reasons. It's early childhood experience, partially, how you connect to it, how you have connected to it, how you connect to it now.
Well, yeah, especially if you grew up playing sports, it's more of an integrative thing in your life.
Yeah.
I didn't really grow up playing sports. I played soccer, AYSO, and I played tennis in high school, but I didn't really get into that hardcore. But what I did is I was sick a lot, and I couldn't really participate in sports a lot. What I could do is I could watch movies, I could read books, I could play video games.
Yeah.
And these would be my escape from the horrible, horrible things that was happening. So now you're
continuing to come back to those things because you know that it's a safe place for you.
I'm sure that's part of it, but I also think it developed a muscle in my developed a muscle in a certain way that, yeah, I think when you indulge,
as soon as you start calling conditions muscles, I think
no, I meant
because conditioning, you've been conditioned to like those things to a certain degree.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of things are conditioning. You like what you continually do. You like things that sound the same. You like things that are familiar. And it's not that you can't like different things, but if things are super alien.
Yeah, we can call it a muscle. We don't gotta get caught up.
Yeah, I don't mean a literal muscle. I'm just saying it's, like if you do a lot of math, you get better and better and better at it.
Yeah.
This is if you do a lot of imagination, you get better and better and better at it. You can imagine more and more. Or if you're watching sports, you can see the little nuances in every play where I'm just looking at them like, oh, okay, he fumbled.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the extent of my knowledge, and it doesn't mean...
He dropped a ball.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that much to me because I was never... It wasn't, I wasn't I wouldn't say programmed, but it's not how I grew up, and it's not the things that I was into.
Yeah.
And there's various reasons people get into different things. And
some of those things are out of their control.
But I think when you're saying interests, I think world building, stories and stuff was a way for me to live outside of the moment. So
I like to do that too, to a certain degree. And I have done it more in the past. Did some writing in college. I like that. I enjoy the creative process. I used to make way more art, but I'm not drawing or painting these days. It's like now I'm woodworking. And then for me, I've decided this year my area of interest, I guess now that you're mentioning gaming, I'm going to have to add a third, but it's like making curry, making tables, and gaming. Like I feel like I'm just trying to focus on those things.
Yeah, it seems like a good subset of things to focus on.
Yeah.
And, I got...
And this.
I've got the stories. I got probably 100 different story ideas in various stages of thought through.
That's a lot.
Because I don't really I don't have a group of people like I write with. But there's also I told you about that Pumping Station 1 place, right? Yeah. The hackerspace that maybe we'll try one Tuesday.
Yeah.
Well, there's also
we gotta wrap up soon.
Okay. I'll be there in a minute, buddy. Alright, so there's also this nerd store over at Golf Mill Mall. Yeah. And it has everything. Tabletop gaming.
Yeah, I've seen that tabletop spot, or the nerd store. I've seen it.
Yeah, it's right by the theater.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
So we're Balrog and I are gonna try that Thursday night.
Cool.
And that's another thing. There is another place where my story-minded self can really come alive in the stupid things I make my characters do.
Yeah, D&D is great for you. Tabletop games is great for you. Making worlds and then figuring out scenarios that people can interact with those worlds.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to eat fire. A bunch of people rode down my tortoise shell down a mountain, killed me, and then had a funeral for my automata, but didn't acknowledge me whatsoever. I invaded somebody's house in human clothes as a halfling, so I looked like, a little child in adult clothing walking around trying to, bamboozle myself past the guards, and it was hilarious. I almost got myself killed.
Yep.
And
you sound like the Dungeon Master's worst nightmare.
Either that or their best friend, because I make it way more interesting.
Yeah.
One thing, he gave me a puppet of the bad guy Strahd, and then I was fucking around. I was like, I'm your brother Strahd, how you doing? And it turns out the story he has a brother, and I tapped into something that I didn't know about.
That's amazing.
And they were I nearly got myself killed then too, and Caltrops, and this other guy almost killed me. exploding caltrops. I got.
Yeah.
And,
nice.
Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, there's a lot of interest that's, I think, stem from us wanting to cope with things, or maybe relate to other people.
Yeah, because if you can't figure out a way to soften a negative experience, maybe there's a way to stop thinking about it, or to move that energy elsewhere, which is where healthy coping mechanisms can help people.
Yeah, I mean, it's not great to avoid things, but sometimes, like, there's too much, too fast, for too long, and you just need to get away from it just to function.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, I don't know if we had anybody watch. I don't think we did.
Looks like our
counter is at 0.
Counter is 0. That's all right.
That's all right. We didn't tell anybody. It wasn't expected, so makes sense. Maybe we'll advertise
it
a little bit better next week.
Ask for topics. We're still looking for viewer topics.
Yeah, we'll be a little bit more interactive on the social media. I think I'll start that tomorrow, trying to drum up support.
Sure.
Anyways,
thank you for your time.
Always
future or unknown current listeners.
Yeah. And if there's any topics you want to cover or anything you would like to know about either of us and what we've dealt with, let us know. Message us on what we got: X, Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah.
And that's it, right?
Yeah. Okay. I would suggest Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah. All right.
You do you.
Yeah, you do you. And definitely interact, because then, we'll have more diverse topics to cover.
Yeah. Tell us what you want to talk about.
All right.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks for watching.
See you next week.
Bye.